We're here today and we're going to be talking about officer-involved shooting that occurred July 5th of 2021. It involved officers trying to take subject into custody, reference one of our bait cars. One of the things that I wanted to point out from the beginning is the fact that this individual is exactly what we've been talking about in the media in reference to a criminal justice system that needs an overhaul. The individual should have not been out in the community. We need to draw that line in the sand, and there's times where individuals need to stay in custody, and it has a big impact on us, not only resource-wise when we have to arrest the same individual over and over and over again, but also in our uses of force. There's been way too many cases I've seen where, on one hand, sometimes it's asked, why does the Albuquerque Police Department have such a large amount of uses of force? And when you look at some cases, and we've used force on individuals time and time again, taking them into custody when had they, either gotten A, resources to help them with the underlying issue while they were waiting trial, or B, they were in custody, we wouldn't have been put into that situation. So I think this is important of why we have this Metro Crime Initiative and why the mayor's asked all the stakeholders to come together and work on solutions. I think it's important that we be honest amongst ourselves first. There's been many changes APD has had to make to improve our investigations, to present better cases, and even our processes with our SHIELD unit. And there's still many things that APD has to do to make itself better and produce a top-level product. But we also need all the other parts of the criminal justice system to have that ask of, this is where we need more resources if we're going to improve, and this is how we could improve if we all work together. So like I said, I think one of the biggest things to take away from here, above the information provided and the transparency of what occurred in the shooting, is the fact that, this is another one of those examples where our community deserves us to work hard to ensure that it is protected. And there are certain individuals who are out in the community and they're endangering people every day, and we have to work together to make sure that this stops. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Chief Hartsock, and he'll brief you on the shootings. We'll be available for questions afterwards. Thank you.
Let me get this shaky HDMI cable back in. I'll try my best not to touch the podium at all. Hi guys, we're here today for a critical incident community briefing about an officer-involved shooting that took place on July 5th, 2021. The shooting itself occurred at the 5900 block of Osuna Road Northeast. My name is Deputy Commander Kyle Hartsock, and I'm the Deputy Commander in charge of the Multi-Agency Task Force for the Albuquerque Police Department. This critical incident community briefing will provide you with information of a stolen police-owned vehicle or a bait car where the driver fired at police and officers returned fire. The male was wounded and arrested. You're about to see relevant video footage and learn about other evidence and police procedures related to the case so you can have a better understanding of what occurred based on what we know right now. The Albuquerque Police Department conducts a very thorough criminal and use of force investigations, which typically require investigators to interview multiple witnesses, review hours of video footage, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. We're still at the early stages of this investigation, which can often take several months to complete. Our understanding of the incident may change as this additional evidence is collected, analyzed, and reviewed. We also do not draw any conclusions about whether the officers acted consistent with our policies or the law until all the facts are known and the investigation is complete. A word of caution: the images and video may be disturbing. When police officers use of force to arrest a subject or defend against an attack, it can be graphic and difficult to watch. In addition, there may be strong language by those shown in the videos. This incident we're showing you took place in two area commands. The Southeast Area Command is where it started, and it traveled into the Northeast Area Command. On July 5th, 2021, at approximately 7:34 in the morning, our dispatch received an alarm that one of the Albuquerque Police Department bait vehicle's doors had been opened. The bait vehicle had been placed at the request of an area commander in the 7200 block of Central Avenue Southeast inside of an apartment complex. Video surveillance was transmitted to our dispatch center and an on-call auto theft supervisor who's able to log on and start looking at video and GPS of where the vehicle was in near real time. Keep in mind there are sometimes up to a minute delayed of this video actually transmitting. The video surveillance showed a male subject enter the vehicle, rummage through the center console in the back seat of the vehicle, and then proceed to start it without a key and drive away. The bait vehicle was pretty soon thereafter located near Wyoming and I-40, traveling northbound on Wyoming from the I-40 area. At least one marked patrol unit that had 2 officers in the unit started to follow the unit. The bait vehicle then turned west on Osuna from Wyoming. At about that point, the signal from the auto theft supervisor to dispatch to disable the vehicle was given. And again, that can sometimes take 30 seconds to a minute to happen. Eventually what happens is the ability for the vehicle to accelerate is cut off. And you'll see this in the video as we play it. As the vehicle slowed to a stop is where the shooting takes place. We have videos from the officers as well as video taken from inside the bait vehicle that shows not just the theft but the actual shooting from 3 different perspectives around the driver's seat. And that's what we're going to go over today. To start off with, this is the vehicle. This is the video from inside the bait vehicle at the moment it was taken. There is audio. I'll make sure we turn it up to try to hear it better next time. The subject you see in the vehicle was eventually identified as Dalton Cunningham, who was 26 years old at the time of this incident. At the time of this theft, he had multiple felony warrants out for his arrest out of Santa Fe County's jurisdiction. They involved aggravated domestic violence incidents, felon in possession of a firearm, aggravated fleeing in law enforcement, and motor vehicle theft. All the warrants were about 30 days old or less at the time of this incident. As I said, there was 1 marked unit at least following this stolen vehicle with 2 police officers inside. The lapel video from the passenger officer is what we're going to show you right now. Just so you're aware, the cameras are designed that they're always recording video, but the video is not saved until the button is activated on the device. It captures 30 seconds of video before the officer activates it, but that video does not contain audio. So as this video starts, the first 30 seconds is going to be silent.
Where's the vehicle?
Is it 1042 vehicle? One seven, 1042 vehicle.
he's trying to start the vehicle, so just get a little closer and keep your pulse.
10-4, just keep you posted on the 20.
And for 10, I believe you know, what was their last cross?
West on Osuna from Louisiana.
He just put on a blue face cover. Suda's coming up to Louisiana.
I'm needing him to the right here, black rock. Okay, 40 back. Shots fired, can you shots?
Give us some space, sir. Give us some space. Huh? Give us some space. Give us some space.
Next to the air. Checking that unit.
Drop it. Drop the gun.
I'm going to add a little context to some of this. Right before the shooting occurs, you can hear a voice announcing the person has a gun. That is one of the auto theft supervisors watching the video stream, trying to transmit that information to the officers who are out there. Again, there's a delay in the surveillance video being seen and being able to communicate that. What I'm going to do is we slow down just the point that the gunfire starts. We'll show you photos, but one of the first rounds that's fired from the bait car vehicle towards the patrol unit hits the windshield of the patrol unit and lands right between both officers' heads. And when the video is slowed down here, you'll see that bullet shattering inward toward the vehicle first, right before the officers fire back. Just kind of direct yourself towards the middle of the windshield. Right there. And finally, like I said, there's 3 different camera angles from inside the bait vehicle that actually recorded what the driver was doing at the time the shooting occurred. I'll play that for you now. The 2 police officers involved in the shooting was Officer Curtis Hoffman and Officer Nathaniel Matheson. Officer Hoffman's been with Albuquerque Police Department since 2017 and has not been involved in any prior officer-involved shootings. Officer Matheson has been with the department since 2019 and has also not been involved in any prior shootings. Both officers did take some time off right after this, but both back are on duty full-time at the time of this, this press briefing. These photos were taken during the investigation initially. This is from the driver's perspective of the patrol unit. The vehicle up ahead is the bait vehicle that was taken. This is from the passenger side. And this is from the outside of the unit. Beyond the hole in the center of the windshield that the investigation shows came from the bait vehicle, other rounds hit the front of the patrol unit. At least one of them punctured the front driver's tire as well of the patrol vehicle. The bait vehicle itself had a mix of bullets going from both directions inside the tailgate, the rear bumper, or the back window. If you look right over here, you can see the firearm in proximity to where the vehicle was. And keep in mind the vehicle rolled. It wasn't put into park or completely stopped. So that's why we see it a little further past. This firearm was reported stolen out of the Santa Fe area. It had a capacity to hold 11 rounds, and all we can tell you is there was no rounds inside the gun when it was recovered. We're still determining how many rounds were likely fired, but it was empty when it was recovered. This is the location where the subject was patted down and taken into custody. On his person was more ammunition, drugs including fentanyl and possible methamphetamine, as well as a driver's license and a New Mexico fishing license that we were able to link up to an auto burglary that had just taken place, although that auto burglary is still under investigation, so no one's been charged from it yet. Mr. Cunningham was arrested that day, and since that day, the Second Judicial District Attorney's Office has indicted this case. He faces the listed charges: aggravated assault on a police officer ×2, unlawful taking of a motor vehicle, possession of narcotics with intent to distribute, possession of burglary tools, felon in possession of a stolen firearm, evading police officers, and reckless driving. And just to remind you, he had at least 2 pending cases in Santa Fe County, and as I checked on them this morning, they're also proceeding forward now as well. A preventative detention motion was filed in this case, and it was granted. He remains in custody as of right now. Over the next several months, the Albuquerque Police Department will continue to investigate and analyze this incident. We will continue interviewing any new witnesses that come forward and complete any forensic test. After the investigation is complete, our Force Review Board will forward the findings to the Superintendent of Police Reform to determine if this incident met the high standards of the Albuquerque Police Department. The Multi-Agency Task Force will forward the case to the District Attorney's Office, who will make any determination of criminal charges. And with that, I'll stand for any questions you guys have on this.
Real quick, Commander, do you want to go back just to the video of from inside the bait car and show that where it struck him in the chin? Are you able to
Yes.
that portion?
He did receive a wound on his chin, and if you focus on his mask, you can see the point that takes place. He was treated and released from the hospital that day. It was definitely the only visible injury that was treated that day. And as much as we can tell, yeah. You can see when he's arrested, he has blood on him, and we believe he's bleeding from his chin right there.
Yeah. How long was it before he was stopped, in between when he picked up the bait car and when he was stopped?
It's within an hour.
How much cash did he have?
You know, I'm not sure.
So we talk about this debate program all the time. Can you talk to me about just, is this a pretty rare incident where it turns into something, you know, that escalates to this? I mean, in the experience of the program, has it turned violent like this before?
I mean, I think it's rare that we have people just outwardly shooting at police through a stolen car, but it does happen. But people and DC Brown is happy to answer this too. They do tend to run. They run on foot. They try to start the car. They try to flee very, very out. That's very common, which is why this program is successful, that it disables the vehicle in a safe way. It doesn't disable the brakes. It doesn't disable turn signals or anything else. They just can't accelerate anymore, which makes it a safer situation for those involved. And Chief?
And one of the things is we do have people run from bait cars. When we implemented the bait car program in 2011, we had a decision to make. We could actually have locked individuals into the car so they couldn't exit, but we made the decision for safety reasons not to lock the doors in case there was some kind of accident or something, and something occurred that the individual, the suspect, for their protection would be able to get out of the vehicle. But we frequently have individuals run from bait cars, and that's part of having the right response and the right resources there. There is something that we kind of a shed of good light that we saw in this is we've been saying that, we talk about de-escalation over and over again, and we're asking officers to, verbally or through other means try to de-escalate a situation. One of the things that I was happy to see on this case is when the officer talks about let's give him some space and let's give him some distance, because I think that's something that we are promoting as a department, that we're actually bringing this to the monitors and DOJ, saying, look, there's not just de-escalation, there's also creating space and time and making sure we're able to get the right resources there. If you note, I saw the officers not chasing him until they said he's dropped the gun, which is a good decision, because other than that, we should be starting a perimeter, we should be getting the right resources out, so we reduce the likelihood of using force. So there are some positive things that we saw from this, but I think it's going to be expected always that every time we have a bait car deployment, individuals don't want to go to jail, and a lot of times they flee on foot, but it's very rare. I think this is the first occurrence we've had where somebody actually fired around from inside of a bait car towards our officers. Josh, do you know of any other time?
We've had multiple guns recovered. We've seen them on video stashing guns in the vehicle or picking that from like center console and putting them on the body. But this is the first actual shooting from the bait car vehicle we've had.
And it seems like you guys could have lost an officer or two in this. And so I'm wondering, does this, obviously in your line of work, it's a possibility every day that you go to work, but just seeing how close of a call it really was, does that change anything for you guys when it comes to, I guess, pursuing the bait cars?
No, it does emphasize the importance of some of the investments that have been made into the bait car vehicles. The live stream was an option that we picked up so we'd have better intelligence. It was something that was not originally available when we started the program in 2011. But if you think back during this period of time, the next week we had another police car hit on Central. Short time later, FBI had an agent that was shot. So I think it just goes to show the dangers that our officers are facing day in and day out in the community when they're dealing with these individuals, and that these situations can change on a moment's notice. I mean, you see that this individual's driving, there's no mention of a gun, and at the very last second you hear the guy say he has a gun in his hand, beware, and within seconds shots are being fired from the vehicle out to the officers. So our officers always have to be prepared. It's always something that's out there, it's something that you contend with, and I think that's why it goes back to the importance of training our officers well and making sure that they're ready for situations like this. But along the same lines, that they're always reassessing and making good decisions not to escalate it further than they have to.
Can you tell us how many other bait cars are out in the community on that day, even just approximately?
We've never given up the exact number of bait cars we have. We have bait cars in the double digits, and the first digit is more than one, I believe. We don't give up that information. We didn't have as many bait cars as we generally like because we had some GPS positioning issues with the bait car systems. And part of the reason it took an hour to get this car located is the sergeant did a great job. He actually located the surrounding in the video and said, oh, I know where they're at. So they started units to that direction. So they've corrected that issue, and the program's going further. But one of the things I'm looking at is continuing to add bait cars. I'd like us to maybe even add another third of what we have now, or double, because the bait car program has always been successful in helping us remove individuals stealing cars. And we know that every time we arrest somebody with a stolen car, they have a pile of felony warrants for a bunch of other things. And we've talked about this since 2017, December, in January with those first bait car operations. I really pushed those and supported them at the time because we know the stolen car is the means of transportation for our criminals in the system. They're dealing drugs out of stolen cars. They're breaking into houses in a stolen car. They're robbing locations in a stolen car. They're driving stolen cars into businesses to burglarize them. So we will continue our focus on stolen cars because in a way, focusing with our limited resources on stolen cars, we're kind of hitting crime across the board throughout the city. And I think that's why we're seeing such reductions in so many areas, because we've found a way to focus on the stolen car and it's impacting every other crime category.
Sorry, did you say the GPS wasn't working, so the sergeant located the car based on the surroundings?
Yes, the sergeant, I mean, that's a compliment to the sergeant for him to be able to look and say, I recognize those signs in that building, to me was just outstanding work by the sergeant at the time.
Is that bait car back on the streets?
No, unfortunately, we probably will lose that bait car for a variety of reasons. It's been in every news story. And when bait cars in the past have been identified, we've had them vandalized and stuff. So once we think a bait car is greatly compromised, we'll filter them out in some system. But a lot of times, depending where the car came from, we're able to filter that car out and bring another one in with very little costs to the department.
I have a follow-up. So with the bait program, has this helped drive down like the auto theft, numbers?
Without a doubt, if you look back in 2011, when myself, the sergeant, and a detective from the unit went to Fort Worth and we got an exposure to what a real bait car program looked like, and we came back and we implemented the bait car program in Albuquerque, 12 and 13 had some of the lowest bait car numbers. And that's one of the things that we noticed when we came back in 2017. The original company that we had went with, their bait car systems had become obsolete and the company basically went out of business. So when we got back in 2017, the city of Albuquerque actually had no bait cars that were deployable. They were in the process of getting ready. They were funding. There's a variety of things that were going on. So we re-implemented the bait car program, and the bait car program, without a doubt, has had a huge impact on us being able to lower our numbers. If you look, I think in 2011-12 timeframe, it's probably one of the only times Albuquerque fell out of the top 10 in auto theft.
Do you know exactly what number, like the decrease on that? Like what percentage?
Back then, I don't know, but right now we're looking about what, Gilbert? Auto theft for the last 3 years? We'll have to look to get it, but it's been a good decrease each year.
Chief, you mentioned that he shouldn't have been out in the community and that you're saying that. Have you looked at his criminal history to see why he was out?
We haven't done a deep dive into why he's been out. There's a variety of reasons. And this emphasizes some of the cases were recent, and we need to increase our communications and our abilities to share information across the state. And I think that's one of those other big key pieces. If you look back to some of our previous shootings, we had a shooting with an individual from northern New Mexico, from Espanola, where, we basically got a teletype at one point that said, be on the lookout for the individual. We have to be able to develop a system where we're sharing more information amongst the agencies in the state, and where we could easily key individuals. I mean, this individual, if you look at some of the cases, aggravated fleeing, all the cases there to show that this individual is going to resist arrest and do everything they can to not be taken into custody.
I have one question on it. It's unrelated. It's on the police audit that just came down. Just kind of a broad question. This is the 7th report, so I'm just wondering, why has it taken so long to kind of get this addressed? And the second question is, I know that the city's blamed former Chief Mike Geyer for that, but I'm just wondering, what are the checks and balances there?
I don't think there's just one person to blame from the past. There's multiple, because the overtime problems with APD have occurred since I can remember coming on this department. So there's been a lot of people who could have taken action quicker than they did. Why it was done, I couldn't answer for everybody. I do know that it was a priority of ours. We did make the decision to put out the special order as quickly as possible. And we're also working on auditing ourselves and creating a system where we try to catch things earlier, and we encourage that type of oversight within the department. And that goes along the lines of the philosophy that we're trying to bring to the police department at this time is where we're continually self-assessing and trying to see how we could improve. One of the big examples of that is our detective academy. For years, we've been seeing our cases struggle. We've been seeing, you know, the missteps by certain investigators in these high-profile cases. We've taken a beating over it, yet nothing was done to correct it. And that's why we developed the Detective Academy, and that group actually will meet frequently. I just spoke to DA Torres, and we're going to debrief on key cases to see how we could improve to make sure that, win or lose, that we present a better case next time. And the first one we're going to be debriefing is the recent homicide with the Garcia suspect from last week. We're going to debrief and see how we could have made the case stronger, even though we won it. And it's the same thing with now. Right now, we just notified commanders of their top 20 overtime earners for the department, and we're going to ask commanders to make sure that on the surface everything looks good and make sure there's no issues. And in the near future, we want to add an official audit to that. So I think it's just a matter that we need to create a new culture at APD where we're consistently evaluating and finding new ways to correct problems before they come this large and we're faced with another scandal.